What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. If there's one thing Joe Douglas has been good at, it's been bargain shopping. And he's doing it once again with some of the moves that we've seen in the practice squad realm. So 3 transactions overall. We lose Mr. Irrelevant safety Jaylen Key, but we add Super Bowl champion cornerback / safety Jalen Mills. And then we also add in linebacker Brandon Smith, and both of these guys are very intriguing for 2 different reasons. So for starters, I'll just put out there before we get into kind of quick summary of Jaylen Key, Jalen Mills, is that from what I saw, there were some reports that the expectation may be he ends up joining the 53-man roster at some point. And I don't expect that we will keep 5 safeties, right? Because right now we're working with Chuck Clark, Tony Adams, Ashton Davis, and Isaiah Oliver. I would imagine Isaiah Oliver gets dumped at some point in favor of Jalen Mills, and then he could potentially even leapfrog Ashton Davis for some snaps, depending on how things pan out for Ashton there. But Jalen Mills is intriguing for a number of reasons, right? So he's coming in at 30 years old, not a guy that we'll be keeping around for forever and a day, and he is coming off of a injury with the Giants, specifically to his calf, that ended up leading to his release earlier this year. But when healthy, you'd have to imagine that he can be a plus player for the Jets on the back end. He comes in stout in run defense, right? Smothering run defense. I think I saw he had a grade around like 84 in terms of PFF standards, but he's a natural cornerback that's listed at safety for the Jets, and this wouldn't be the first time the Eagles have played around with utilizing him both as a cornerback and safety. And then even with his tenure with the Patriots, they used him in his final year there as well, and he didn't look out of place whatsoever. So you love the fact that he can dibble and dabble in both realms, right? And that's really hard to do, which speaks to his skill set, because changing the depth of where a player plays just 5 yards can create a drastic difference in read and reaction ability to diagnose plays, ability to make those kind of impact plays if you want to talk about a player, quote unquote, losing a step or not. So I'm intrigued to see where we end up using him at, because he's played all over the place when you think about the secondary. Free safety, strong safety, linebacker, slot cornerback, and that was the Patriots really exposing him to a lot of this outside of some of his prior experience with the Eagles. So you love the fact that you're adding, again, a champion-made player, a significant player that helped the Eagles during their Super Bowl run back in 2018. And then you're talking about, obviously, the experience. 100-plus games, 80-plus starts. Overall, you get really excited about the fact that you shore up the back end. And, if we could have gotten him earlier in the offseason when he was healthy, because he does have overlap with Joe Douglas, which is why I'm assuming this would have been an easy move for him to replace one of his draft picks, right? And then, if Jaylen Key doesn't get picked up, some changes happens, injury, etc., we can see him rejoin the practice squad. But to take away a developmental player that had some upside for a veteran like we are now, I think this still speaks to the win now mindset that we kind of have going on with not knowing how big, open, wide, long, etc. Our Super Bowl window is. The other player, though, it is, again, it just kind of adds to the pipeline, the embarrassment of riches. Anytime I can see a defensive player get added for the Jets, I get really excited. But specifically when you're talking about rare athletes, right? We've heard Robert Saleh mention before that he doesn't really put a lot of stock into drafting linebacker early unless you're just talking about a unicorn type player. And Brandon Smith definitely has all the traits. Only 23 years old, linebacker, coming in at 6'3", 241 pounds. So you're also talking about a guy that brings more of a throwback build in terms of how he, compares to the rest of the roster. He might be slightly higher, around the same realm of, CJ Mosley. Can't remember where he landed after he cut down on his weight, but nonetheless, he's definitely going to be one of the heaviest players that's not playing on the defensive line in our linebacker room. 9.97 RAS score. It was one of the highest numbers they've recorded for a linebacker in over the last 20 years. And then you're also talking about draft pedigree, 4th round pick. So you're talking about a guy that just missed out being a day 2 prospect in the 2022 NFL draft, and he was largely considered one of the 10 best linebackers in that draft class. And I think a lot of what's happened is you've heard Robert Saleh talk about some guys just needing more time to develop, lack of opportunities, as well as, potential misfits with where he's been. Carolina Panthers didn't really seem to trust him a ton, where he only saw 7% of the snaps as a rookie, and then also saw his season end a little bit early due to an ankle injury. And then when the Eagles decided to snap him up after Frank Reich, Rich, you guys know what I mean, for the Panthers at the time, new head coach, didn't really favor him whatsoever. He goes to the Eagles. He becomes a special teams player for them while they try to coach things up. But when you think about what the Jets have done at the linebacker position for us, not just players on our roster, but when you also think about players that have gone on to have success elsewhere, this seems like it could be a huge deal for the Jets. And mainly I say that because you have the elite athleticism, but you're also getting that plus size, right? So when you want to talk about a run stopper, a guy that can attack that A and B gap, bang with the offensive lineman, meet some of these bigger plus size guys. Like, I would love to see what a collision between Braylon Allen and Brandon Smith will look like. He could be, that X factor type player for the Jets. And then, of course, anytime you want to talk about shoring up the run defense, that's a huge plus. So he doesn't have anything from a skill set standpoint that necessarily stands out, but, coming from Penn State, all kind of freaky athletes, and Penn State's a well-coached team as well. So if anybody can figure out a way to make him turn things around, it's this coaching staff. But let me know ultimately what you guys think about these moves. It might not be anything that moves the needle this year per se, unless Jalen Mills does get elevated up or officially signed to the 53 at some point. But I think these are huge moves for us. So let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you again. Peace.